Hello, I'm Ross Tayler, your host and guide for Sacred Sundays, a space to slow down, tune in, and return to what's sacred within and around you. I'm also a life coach for empaths and sensitive souls, walking alongside those who are ready to come home to who they actually are. These conversations are part of fulfilling that purpose, a collective exploration of what it means to live in connection with the sacred. Some weeks you'll hear a sound-based offering to open the space. Other times we'll simply begin in conversation. However it unfolds, this is an invitation into presence, connection, and the beauty of the unseen. If these conversations find you, please subscribe, rate, and share so others can find their way here. Pour a cup of tea, settle in, and let's begin. Today on Sacred Sundays, our guest is Onyx Rose. Onyx is a performing artist of mixed Irish and Native heritage. She channels her passion for music and movement to express her true nature. Through embodiment, she invites you to dance and connect with your own magic. She combines live vocals, evocative lyrics, and free-flowing, expressive dance moves with soulful, sexy dance music to ignite your inner fire, inviting connection and freedom. Onyx writes about the real, raw human experience from an elevated perspective, and she brings medicine songs into the influential sphere of pop culture. Welcome, Onyx. So good to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so enjoying connecting and having this opportunity to share about my music. So thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And we're actually going to begin by listening to some of your music. We're going to listen to a song called Shine Bright. And is there anything you want to say about this song before we listen to it together?
Sure. This is a reimagining, I guess, of the first song that I wrote, which was an empowering song about freedom during COVID when I felt like there was so much disharmony and chaotic energy. So it was really like a community song, but also had some themes of like trust and lies. And then when I was getting ready to record, I wasn't, because I have a whole bunch of songs, I wasn't sure at first which I was going to share first. And so I asked myself how this song wanted to come forward, and I ended up rewriting it because it just seemed like the right thing to do. So it's a revision with the intention of creating a starting point for me sharing my music and with really like finding inner light and inner power and unity. And it woke me up several times. I set the intention, like I want to rewrite this song as my first offering. And I just kind of waited. And then one night the verses just popped into my head and I recorded them, the first verse, and I was like, oh, that was good. And then I went to go back to sleep. And then the next verse came, and then the same thing happened the third time. So it was fun because it was just like myself. I was just ready to share these simple but beautiful lyrics.
Beautiful. All right, let's give it a listen, and then we will have a chat afterwards.
Our light, future bright. Our light, future bright. Our light, future bright. Our light, future bright. Future bright, future bright. Our light, future bright. Future bright, future bright. Our light, future bright. Let's unite, let's shine our lights. Let's get together and be so bright. Let's unite, let's be the light. Let's get together and shine our light. Shine our light, shine our light. Let's get together and shine our light. Shine our light, shine our light. Let's get together and shine our light.
That was great. Thank you for sharing that. It made me reflect on my own journey of growth and stepping into my light and stepping into my power. You know, all those words that we're told and we on our spiritual journey, and thinking about all the struggles that happen along the way, because it's not always a straight line to that destination. So, yeah, on that note, I'm curious, what was part of your experience leading up to writing this song? And sometimes I feel like the thing that we're putting out in the world, we have to live it and experience it. And so I'm wondering how that showed up for you.
I have been really intentionally manifesting my desires. So the first song I wrote was really about bringing community together and trying to unify energy. At first, I was trying to get people to pray together during COVID, and it was really challenging because I have a lot of different friends with very vast spiritual beliefs. And so they were kind of like my Catholic friends and, my atheist friends and my pagan friends and everything in between. They're all kind of like wanting to do their own practices. And I really wanted people to come together to unify. I maybe should have just invited them to come breathe together. um, because like the word prayer is kind of a loaded word, for people, or a sacred word. It can be either way. So, but it can be triggering. And also like the idea of, doing something sacred with people that you maybe don't relate to or that have a different belief structure. So, yeah, so it was around the same time. I was trying to get people to pray together. And then I wrote a song about like truth and lies and like willingness to see the truth, with the sort of shine your light as like a center part of the song. But the third, like in the third part of the song, I say, we've got the power to live our lives. We've got the power to make it right. And that was really like the strongest theme that I wrote that original song with, was like really wanting people to be in power and like make choices for themselves for goodness, even though the world was in chaos, so like lockdown and like, it was post lockdown, but still, it was still very tense. And I feel like we forgot how to live a little bit during that time. Like people got so consumed by fear, but then eventually I think a lot of us woke up to being like, well, like I don't want to just suffer through my life and like be afraid the whole time. So, this re like choosing and re-empowering ourselves to like live the life we want within the within our realm of possibilities, but
Mhm.
so all this was going on, and then I got really sick. And I'm a very creative person, and I always have like a million ideas and a million passions and like kids to raise and gardens to grow and all these things. And I got really sick, and I really decided I was going to prioritize music as a form of prayer, as a form of influencing culture, as a form of bringing people together. To unify the field. And I wanted to carry the sentiments of the first song that I wrote, but I wanted a more simple, uplifting, joyful delivery, I guess, with the
Mhm.
lyrics. Yeah. And for me, like the shine your light thing is, I mean, it's very multifaceted. I study feng shui and Chinese astrology, and I have been for 15 years. And in that structure, my day master, which is kind of like your sun sign in Western astrology, is the sun. And so I really relate and feel at home with like the idea of light shining as well, and radiance. They're really big themes for me. I feel like I even felt that way before I knew that. And I'm constantly working on this idea of being radiant, doing what I love, doing what fulfills me, and also in a way that is like everybody wins, but not to like dull myself or like not shine or like hide. I want to live authentically. And that notion of like when we shine, I think if everyone did what they love to some degree, or at least like started investing in that and had like inner passion, I think the world would be a better place. And I think
Mhm.
that when you add the context of like win-win, like, because sometimes I check in, I'm like, can I do this and not be in some sort of power dynamic?
What I like about your answer is that it really paints the picture of the journey that we're all going through on some way, on some level, because we're being conditioned to live a certain way and be a certain way and meet certain standards and expectations. And what you're saying in the song is to rise up above all of that and let those parts of us shine that the world really is wanting to see. And at the same time, release our conditioning, which really that is the hero's journey of being here as a human being on this planet, trying to find ourselves and trying to find our purpose and our passions and express those things and push through like a flower pushing through the earth to come out and be the flower. It's the same thing that we're doing as well. And you articulated that in your story as well. And when I think about COVID, I think about the amount of fear that was being expressed at that time and the uncertainty. And it's really hard to create from those energies and at the same time feel good about things. It's really an interesting journey that we went through. And I think a lot of people during that time reinvented themselves because they had no choice but to look in the mirror at all the things that were going on and to maybe slow down enough to see the inconsistencies. And a lot of people probably paused and went, oh, no, I want this to be different. Maybe I don't want to go back to this job that I had, or realizing, wow, this person that I've been married to for 20 years, I don't even like them anymore. Like something's got to change. And it was like this crucible for all of that. So I really appreciate that what you highlighted that lines up with all those things. I got the impression or the sense that the song is very much an energetic transmission as much as it is a piece of music. And I wonder what you would say about that.
Yeah, when I was going into the studio, I was very flustered and like I'd never done that. I'd played around with someone doing some very demo recordings, so I had a little bit of experience, but this was a producer that I went into studio with who I'd never met before. And I didn't know who they were or what they were about, really. I'd listened to a couple of their songs, but I was in a state of like, I want to move forward and I'm going to trust that I can make it awesome. And I'm going to trust that I can follow the path of creating something beautiful if I just keep aligning to that. So every time I would start being like, who is this person? How am I going to sound? Freaking out a little bit. And then, like, even in the studio, in the session, I was like really sweaty and I just kept anchoring myself in the energy of the intention of the song. Yeah. It was a very trippy thing to do. And I loved it. And it really also pushed me in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. So are you saying that the byproduct of that experience was that it was continually pushing yourself back towards that inner alignment, and once you were in that state, that energetic transmission came through?
I didn't give myself a choice. It's just I kept reminding myself
Mm-hmm.
that I could do it,
Mm-hmm.
that if I get in alignment, that it will work, that it will do the job.
And to that extent, do you feel like that you just opened yourself up to that channel and you were able to connect to that energy when you pushed yourself back to that centered place?
Yeah, so I'm a bit cautious with the word channeling because I don't take in any information really from any other source. It's more like a resonance or like a radiance. I think it could be described as like a channel. It's really a embodiment
Mm-hmm.
of knowing and choosing and finding, not letting sort of monkey mind or distraction come in, but just keep realigning to sort of the mission,
Mm-hmm.
which is to deliver a message that holds the energy of the message.
Okay. And that makes me think about all the people out there who have a spark of wanting to share their light or wanting to share something out in the world and hold themselves back and struggle with the process. What would you say to them? What have you learned that would help the listeners that might be in that space?
It's always a good time to start investing in your own inner desires, inner light, inner nourishment, even if you don't know what that is yet. paying attention to what brings you joy, trusting yourself and believing in yourself so that it makes the world a better place. And then within that, I was going to use like the analogy of like you have to like, take care of yourself first before you can take care of others. But I actually don't really believe that. I think that ultimately you have to always seek balance, and but when you're in a meditative state or you're looking for clarity, that's when you go into self. And that can happen like in the shower or on a walk or on a drive. Anytime you're really alone, I think is like the opportunity to like really check in with the self. Um, but that in regular life, it's always a balance. I think reciprocity, it's like I'm here, but then like right next to me is like my kids and everybody else. It's like they're not really separate. Like I kind of feel like when you're creating joy or following a passion, it is of service. Like they're not separate. It's not like, but in order to get to that place, like I had to do a lot of soul searching about what I wanted, but I also want, to raise my kids, and I also want to see the world be a better place. And I also want to eat healthy food. There's no separation,
Mm-hmm.
but there is investigation of like knowing that what I want is of service,
Mm-hmm.
but also saying no to all the things that are really kind of like others first or other outside self,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like then you're kind of like leaning out, and then that's, when you might not be right on your compass of like being in real alignment with yourself.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like what you're saying is that the biggest piece of the journey is to be aligned with that inner compass and find the way of coming back to that and turning off all the noise. And then when you're at that place, it flows much easier. And it's making me think about these lower three chakras of fear, guilt, and shame are the energies that come from them, right? And you spoke of joy, and like, you know, the fear, the opposite is groundedness. And then when we look at the other two chakras, there's about an expression of creativity and an expression of power and light. And so there's this duality that we're having to work with. And you said that this song is a very nuanced, and there's a shadow aspect of it as well, right? Like I believe that shadow work is actually about the light. And so we need to kind of transcend those lower vibrational energies in order to express it, but it's all part of the same thing. It's like to be fearful about something is also the catalyst to push us into the opposite side of it, which is to be grounded and rooted in our strength and to know ourselves. And so I think we're always kind of playing that dance between all of these things. And when we're going to put ourselves out in the world, we have to work through all the things that have happened to us that made us not shine our light.
Yeah, totally. And I love that you brought up the lower three chakras, because I feel like a lot of my spiritual work is in the lower three chakras, not to transcend them, but to transcend the negative things, aspects that can arise there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I mean, for me, that's been, I think, the majority of my growth and my healing has been focusing on those chakras that were not really activated and not really in balance. And of course, that's the journey towards the heart, right? Which is the ultimate. And then for me, also the element of being in my head and being safe there. So that journey from the head back to the heart as well.
Yes, they unite in the heart.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I actually wrote a 3-part guide recently. It's like a free guide called Shine Your Light, and it's exactly what we're talking about. And I wrote it as like a 3-stage thing where the first part is like, what is your passion, or how do you find your passion? There's a bunch of journal prompts and things that I use to bring me to center. And then the second part is permission, deserving, and how like when we share our gifts, it is of service. Like be generous with yourself, be generous with your gifts. See your offering as like an act of generosity. And again, journaling prompts and whatnot to feel like it's okay to have a passion and we're allowed to enjoy our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third part is like, how do you kind of stay committed, or how do you stay on the path? Like, how do I keep realigning? Distractions are always there. And so it's like, why? Why? It's because I want to, I want to keep coming back. Yeah.
You're making me think about all these experiences that we can have in our life. Like recently, where I live, there was a men's weekend. It was like a warrior weekend, and I've been a part of that. And I had friends who went to that. And we have these experiences where we open our hearts. We are with other people that are opening their hearts, and they're these big, big experiences. And then we have to go back into our everyday life. And the going back into our everyday life is hard because it's hard to sustain what woke up within us on these experiences. And it also makes me think about, I've done journeys with psilocybin, and you have all these deep awarenesses and having to go back to reality. But that's the journey as well. It's like, how do I take these things and integrate and blend these experiences in my everyday life? What would you say about that?
Yeah, it's a big part, because there are the aha moments, and then there's sort of our normal lives, and then it's like, how do we start integrating, and how do we stay on path, and how do we make time for it, and how do we
Mm-hmm.
not get discouraged, and all these things. So some of my practices are in the guide that I wrote. One of my questions is, if money were no object, like, what would I do? Like, if there was no
Mm-hmm.
money, there was no struggle, everything was great, what would I do? And it's like, I would still do music. I would still do it. I would still pursue it. I love every aspect of it. And so I know. And then finding time, not getting distracted or not getting discouraged, because I have, lots of things that can take my attention in my life. But I think it's because I've really established that inner compass that it's easier to come back to.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a long time to really get that clear and to really say no to a lot of things that even might be fun, but they're not in alignment with my core goals, which is my kids and my music are really my
Mm-hmm.
family, my husband included. And then, like, the music serves them because it's designed to influence culture, even if
Mm-hmm.
it's not exactly in the moment always. Not that it's bad for them, but I do go away to record, and I do need quiet time, and I can't be on mom
Mm-hmm.
duty when I'm doing that. I have some like journal prompts and questions that I constantly like re align to.
Mm-hmm.
But just also just believing that, like, all the little things kind of add up,
Mm-hmm.
like just making the most of my time. Just like the little voice memos, the little notes I make, the little plans that I make, it all kind of stacks up. And
Mm-hmm.
so just kind of letting myself off the hook also. Like, I don't get things done always the way that I wanted to, but just trying to find the joy in it, looking for the joy in it. It's not only about the end goals, it's also about the little things along the way. And I think that that helps with any thing that you're doing. And if you can bring it into your everyday life in any capacity, or your weekly life or your monthly life, I think that's great. Like, if you had a weekly or a monthly practice that helps you get into alignment or get into the space of wherever you find creativity. But honestly, like for me, like waiting, driving in the car, like I've always used those as opportunities to look inside and practice whatever it is that I'm practicing.
On your website, I noticed you said, I've studied many things, and there's a whole list of things that you've journeyed through and experienced. And I'd love to hear how those things informed who you are today, and which ones stand out to you as being the most important. Because there's a pretty good list there.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're all important. I use feng shui and Chinese astrology a lot. I use it as a tool of manifesting. It's part of how I found this beautiful house, and part of how I got to Costa Rica is by using those tools. I find it's really effective, and yeah, it's a powerful tool for aligning when you know what you want. You can use it as for clarity as well. Yeah. So there's that. I don't use my knowledge of, like, I'm a birth enthusiast. Like, I think empowering women in birth is really important for society. Um, I'm always game to talk about birth, but it's not something that I use as a tool, but it is like a reference point, like understanding physiology and the physiological birth, and like, just knowing how children and mothers and fathers are all impacted by the birth process, like how that can really set the nervous system on, in one way or another. Um, I've been on like a healing journey since before I was born. Like I have some early, even in utero trauma that I can track. Like in my feng shui chart, it says like your parents aren't helpful.
Mm.
So I feel like I came into this world feeling like looking for, or like knowing I had to be self-resourced to some extent. My parents are very loving and they gave me a lot of gifts, but in some ways they just like, they never paid for my college. They didn't, like in Chinese astrology, like helpful parents are like there to guide you. My parents weren't super, like I was a really free child, but I also was I didn't really take risks. It doesn't need to be about trauma. Like I firmly have come to a place where one of my like prayers, because there has been a lot of trauma like in my life, like in my siblings' lives, in my parents' lives, and on, especially with my dad being First Nations too. It's like very close. He was in a residential school. One of my like balms or prayers around that is really like may I learn my lessons with ease and grace. May like whatever lessons or whatever challenges I need to face, may they come with ease and grace. Because I don't believe that we need to have trauma necessarily to have like an evolved perspective. But that is my path to where my evolved perspective came from. But I sort of closed the door to that. And I continue working on staying on my path and not getting also distracted. Like trauma, I feel like is also a distraction. It's a lesson, but I've already had so many lessons that, at this point I'm, and I say this prayer for all people, like may we learn our lessons with ease and grace, but I've done a lot of healing on like my lineage, ancestral healing. I've done plant medicine. I've done all sorts of therapies. I've studied essential oil spiritually and physically. I've studied nutrition physically. I take in, I'm like always this growing puzzle, and I'm like my mind just likes to keep track of things that are about health and wellness, like on all levels. And yeah, so I'd say all those things are always with me. All the things I listed, all those things I would say certainly come up in the span of a week for me. Yeah. Not that I'm doing plant medicine every week, but the journeys that I've been on, I do like these sort of like gateways, and Yoga Nidra is a gateway as well. I find Yoga Nidra has some similarities to plant medicine. So does Akashic Records. I use like Akashic Records breathing techniques like really regularly. In the last couple of years, I really have been practicing like true sovereignty, and that I don't invoke or connect with any kind of deities, angels, spirits of any sort. I've been practicing all my shamanic tools only within the forces of nature. And I do have two exceptions that I've been using, which is that I use the medicine Buddha mantra, but I may change that. It's the one sort of deity prayer that I have used over the last couple of years while I've been in this sort of curiosity of like, how much can I manifest and how much can I be in my own joy and, support my family and all these things, like without outsourcing, without looking out to any other beings or energies or whatever. And then I do still do some kirtan, which do have a lot of deities involved. Sometimes I won't sing to the deities. Sometimes I will just say I'm singing this in the energy of devotion, but I am not asking anybody to help me.
It sounds very much like a big part of your journey has been coming back to your inner truth, your inner compass, your inner anchors, and your inner gifts, and really living from that place, as opposed to giving all our power to whether it's trauma, whether it's anybody outside of us. And so like by clearing all this space in your life, you're coming back to yourself. I'm also curious, you mentioned a connection to movement and embodiment. What would you like to say about that as part of your journey and the importance of those things?
Yeah, so my dad was a drummer. and a singer. And both my parents were dancers, and those are certainly gifts that they gave me that I inherited from them, from being around them. And movement has always been an anchor for me. I've always loved dancing. There's passion there, and that people traditionally would have always had a drum and a fire and probably would sing together. And, and we would work together. And so I think movement is a great tool for embodiment. It's certainly always been one of mine. Yeah, it's something I've always been able to do very naturally, is really embody in dance. And I've always had people from the time I could remember, like as a small child, always showing gratitude for my dancing and watching me dance. People have always said, it really inspires me to watch you. Um, so it's part of what I do is just be in my embodied self and in my own joy of it. And yeah, and I like when people watch me dance, and I like dancing with people too. Dancing with people is great fun. Yeah.
I appreciate that. And I loved what you said about fire, dance, movement, drumming. And what came up for me is that those things go across all cultures. We've just lost touch with them. But from a shamanic perspective, if you go back into your lineage, you can find those traditions are there for most cultures, or at least you can find the seed of it in most cultures. And it's definitely a part of ourselves that I experience myself at times of wanting to reconnect to. And when I do, it's very powerful, but it's in my blood, in my DNA, as much as it's something outside of myself that I'm trying to reach out for. What would you say about
It's
that?
totally animal. It's totally
Yeah.
great. Like we all have ancestral wisdom and practices, whether we know about them or not. All cultures would have been living under the stars, under the sun, under the moon, living in nature. Our heartbeat is, the primordial
Hmm.
drum, and being in rhythm is, when we work together, like if you're digging a ditch, like you have to, like with somebody else, you have to be in a rhythm,
Hmm.
you know? Yeah, and I think these are beautiful ways to anchor and practice. And I think
Hmm.
that we can do it even if we don't know where we're from. I think it's just in us, like you said.
Hmm. And currently you're in Costa Rica. Are you there like for spiritual reasons? Are you there for just pleasure? Like, is there anything to say about your time in Costa Rica?
I came here 20 years ago. I did want to come back. I had moved off grid in 2021 and homeschooled my kids. And then I have a 12-year-old now, and it was clear to me that he needed more than living off grid in the woods on a lake with a beautiful beach nearby, which are all things that like satisfy me. And I don't need a lot of people. I love a lot of people, but I also love just having a couple good friends, which I had. But my 12-year-old really needed more. And I was also really feeling like it was really a struggle to get any music done. So everyone's needs aligned, and we were going to move just to a town because we lived on an island. We lived on Texada Island, which is really beautiful and magical, but it was a lot for my kids to want to go to sports. We had to take a ferry. So I was going to move over to Pell River, and the school that I'd wanted to put them in, my son's class was full. And during our time off grid, we started curating this like greatest hits playlist of different kinds of spiritual music that my husband and I love. And one of the songs, actually a couple of the songs on that playlist, are from a retreat center here in Costa Rica. And about a year before we decided to come here, I was standing in the kitchen feeling frustrated with life, with the challenges. I think it was winter, and our pipes freeze, and the kids are kind of stuck inside more than usual. And I was listening to music, and they have like a child singing in this song, and I was like, where do these people live? I think we should just move to wherever these people live, because they haven't figured out, like, listen to this beautiful music they're making. And I looked it up, and it was in Costa Rica. And then the thought passed. I wasn't really ready to move. And then in the summer, when the school was full, I was like, well, there goes my plan. And then I remembered and I listened to the songs and I was like, oh, right, that song, those people. So I looked it up again and I contacted them. I really had 3 priorities, which was good school, happy kids, synonymous, close to the ocean, and somewhere I can work on music. So I ended up, everything came into alignment. I contacted the retreat center. They didn't have a school, so I ended up looking in the surrounding area. And I found a school, and it was August, and I used my knowledge of feng shui to get my husband to commit to, because for him, his chart is clashed in August, and it makes him more willing to change. And the school said, yes, we have space. Can you start in October? And so I said yes. So we pretty much like packed up and came here about 6 weeks from that time. So yeah, it was just really a culmination of me knowing that I was determined to move to have my 3 priorities met. And so that was here.
Such a great example of the things that can happen when we're in alignment and we allow things to line up for us. I mean, 6 weeks is a pretty quick turnaround to make such a big change, but it seems like it's really beneficial for everyone.
It has been so great for my kids. The first few months here were really a bit of a struggle for me. I had to shift around some of how I'd set up our lives here in order to kind of open and I guess allow and be able to manifest this beautiful house. Before that, we were like in moldy and lizard infested like houses. I definitely had some struggles here, but I had to realign and like choose to not waste my energy on like being sick and allow for good things to happen. But yes, it finally has all come together. But the kids overall, they have done great since beginning here. So that's been really awesome. Mhm.
That's amazing. And feels like a good spot to kind of wind down our conversation. And is there anything you want to share prior to us doing that? Is there anything that you really want to make sure you get to share?
Well, the next song I'm going to put out is called Manifest, and it has a bunch of the manifesting tools that I use. I use breath, I use intention, I use alignment. A lot of the themes that I use are in that song. And if you go to my artist profile on any platform and you favorite me or you add me to a playlist with Shine Bright, I have another song called Liberated. You should get a notification when Manifest comes out. Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of the things that feel very important to me and important to share. I really am grateful for this opportunity.
Amazing.
And yeah, it's been super awesome. If you go to my website, I don't have my guide up yet, but if you send me an email, I can send it to you, and I'll have that up really soon. Yeah, so that's what I'm working on.
Perfect. And I'll share all the links that you shared with me in the show notes as well. And I always like to close with the same question. And that question is, what's one simple way that someone could connect with the sacred today?
Our breaths, our breath, our heartbeats. We are a part of nature. If you want a resource from outside yourself, nature is always a great way to do that. Even water, even showering, like intentionally, all these things are very activating tools to come into presence.
It's great. I love the simplicity of that. And they're all things that are right around us if we stop long enough to notice. So that's great.
I
So
often pick up rocks. Like when I have like a thought that I feel like I'm in the moment, I'll always like look for like a rock or something to put in my pocket to remind me. Yeah.
I love that. So Onyx, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation. It was great to get to know you and your music and to really understand who you are in the world. And I'm sure that there's people that are listening that will really appreciate and see themselves in your journey. And that's really what this podcast is about.
Thank you so much. I love your questions and the reflections. It was great for me. I really appreciate it.
Excellent. So good to have you. And we'll just leave it there and say bye for now. Thank you for joining us on Sacred Sundays. I hope something in today's offering spoke to your spirit, stirred something true, or simply gave you a moment to breathe. If this conversation resonated, please subscribe, rate, or share. It truly helps this work reach the people who are meant to find it. If you'd like to step inside my world a little further, I host a free live practice 3 mornings a week called Start With You. Just 20 minutes on Zoom to return to your own energy. Everything you need can be found at the link in the show notes. Until next time, may your day be slow and sacred.